The Dubai sun cast long strokes across the Majlis floor, igniting the Persian rugs in a silent blaze of crimson and gold. Dust motes danced in the gilded air, caught in shafts of light that pierced the carved archways, revealing secrets whispered by cedarwood and heavy damask drapes. A faint aroma of oud and rosewater clung to velvet and polished marble, a fragrant shroud over a space meant for conversation and laughter. Yet for Zara it held only profound silence, a vast emptiness that swallowed sound. This opulent chamber, a sanctuary of tradition and inherited wealth, felt like a stage on which she was merely a prop, admired for placement but never truly seen. The air, thick with generations of history and suffocating luxury, pressed on her, a palpable weight of expectations crushing her spirit. She sat on a low divan, swallowed by its plush embrace, her slender form almost camouflaged by silk cushions. Her gaze, usually alight with curiosity, was distant, fixed on the mosaic tiles across the room. Each tessera, glass or stone, perfectly placed, formed an elaborate bloom mirroring the stifling perfection around her, a beauty offering no solace, only confinement. A silken scarf, a whisper of pearl gray, fell over her dark hair, framing a face etched with weariness. Her hands, delicate and adorned with a single emerald ring that caught the light, lay still in her lap, stillness, more resignation than rest. Inside her, a quiet storm brewed, longing for horizons beyond these walls, a yearning for breath unburdened and thoughts allowed to roam. The weight of expectation, present in every hushed corner, pressed down, a gilded cage crafted from tradition and wealth. Every ornate detail, from gold leaf on cornices to mother-of-pearl inlay on antique tables, magnified her solitude, amplifying the hollow ache in her heart. This enclosure, testament to her family's legacy, had become her beautiful prison. She watched dust motes, ephemeral dances in the light, and wished she could drift so freely, unbound by the golden threads of her life. The city beyond the soundproof windows was a distant dream, its pulse unheard, a world existing only in her imagination. Life outside, a ceaseless symphony of movement and change, continued while Zara remained a static portrait of melancholic grace, frozen in the amber of privilege. Her breath felt constrained, a shallow ebb against the tide of sorrow, a well of unspoken dreams threatening to overflow. The ancient scent of wealth stifled her. Each inhale reminded her of the narrow path set before her. A tremor ran through her, a fleeting rebellion against the rigid shape of her days and the future already written. She yearned for connection, for eyes that saw beyond her family name, for a touch that acknowledged her spirit, not her status. The silence was not peaceful, but a canvas amplifying private grief. Her reflection in a polished cabinet showed a woman outwardly composed, yet inwardly battling longing. The floral motifs on the velvet cushions seemed to mock her. Blooming with life, she felt denied. A soft rustle of silk interrupted the quiet, a gentle disruption in the maintained stillness. Warmth shifted beside her, a familiar scent of jasmine and spices. A hand, soft and known, rested lightly on her shoulder, bringing a sudden sting to Zara's eyes. She turned slowly, her heart giving a hopeful flutter, recognizing the light and warmth of this presence. Samira's face, a sunbeam in the muted light, wore tender concern and a smile of pure affection. Her brown eyes held a question as her voice, a melody that pierced Zara's solitude, finally broke the quiet. "My dear Zara, why do you sit here so entirely alone in this grand and silent room?" Yasmin looked at her reflection in the vast, polished surface of the dining table, seeing only a perfectly composed stranger, a woman whose smile had become an elaborate performance. The glittering chandeliers above cast a cold, harsh light on the untouched feast spread before her, each 24K gold-plated utensil a gleaming symbol of her opulent yet desolate existence. The air, heavy with the scent of exotic blooms from the handcrafted marble vase in the corner, felt stifling, trapping the silence that now filled the sprawling luxury desert resort. She was a beautiful exhibit, a desert rose in a glass dome, admired for her curated perfection but utterly severed from any genuine connection, her spirit slowly suffocating beneath the weight of her husband's expectations and the public's adulation. The lavish gifts, once dazzling tokens of affection, now felt like shackles, each diamond necklace and designer bag another link in the chain that bound her to this gilded prison. Her fingers, adorned with the emerald ring that once symbolized a hopeful future, now traced the cold rim of her crystal glass, a stark contrast to the warmth she craved. She yearned for the simple laughter of her past, for the unburdened spirit that had once danced freely, unaware of the insidious price of such grandeur. The vibrant world she once knew, where her natural hair flowed freely and her opinions were her own, felt like a faded dream, replaced by a meticulously constructed reality where every movement, every expression, was carefully choreographed. The silence in the cavernous dining room was not peaceful. It hummed with the ghosts of unspoken dreams and the echoing truth of a heart that had traded its essence for an illusion. She picked up her phone, the screen illuminating her flawless, yet desolate face, and typed out another message for her followers, a carefully chosen caption of gratitude and joy that felt like a bitter lie in her throat. The glowing screen reflected the empty promise of connection, a shallow mirror to a life lived for an audience, where authenticity had been edited out. Each tap of her finger against the cool glass inscribed the illusion, cementing her role as an unblemished icon of perfection. The message, a string of chosen words broadcast into the digital ether, felt like a heavy cloak over her true self, stifling the last embers of rebellion. A profound weariness settled into her bones, a fatigue no rest in her gilded chambers could ease. The dining room pressed in. Opulent decor became suffocating rather than comforting. She felt the marble's chill rise through her silken gown, a subtle invasion matching the cold in her heart. Outside, the desert night was a vast canvas studded with stars, oblivious to the drama within, or perhaps intimately aware of every suppressed sigh. She let the phone slide from her grasp. Its soft landing on the polished table was a barely audible thud, swallowed by thick rugs and velvet draperies. The faint echo reverberated within her, a small signal of quiet desperation. Her gaze drifted from untouched silver and crystal to the arched windows framing the inky desert beyond. There, beyond manicured gardens, lay a world untamed, unburdened by expectations or scrutiny. A deep yearning for that wild freedom, a life without constant performance, coiled in her gut. She pictured the cool dunes, their shifting contours carved by wind, devoid of the sharp edges of her reality. The thought was a potent whisper of defiance against the constructed edifice of her existence. A subtle shift in the air brought her back from wistful contemplation, not a sound, but a vibration, a hum through the resort's foundations. Familiar, yet different today, it pricked along her skin. The chandeliers, usually steadfast, shimmered with an imperceptible sway, catching light in an unsettling dance. Her breath hitched. A silent question formed on her lips in the profound quiet. The scent of exotic blooms, once a sign of luxury, intensified, cloying, almost suffocating. A nervous flutter began in her chest, a tiny bird trapped in a cage of ribs. She pushed herself up. The rustle of her gown disrupted the silence. Her bare feet, used to soft carpets, felt the marble's distinct coolness, grounding her amid the shift. Her eyes, usually veiled, widened, betraying genuine apprehension. The resort, a bastion of predictable opulence, seemed to hold its breath, a witness to a nascent tension rippling through the desert night. The delicate equilibrium she'd maintained felt fragile, poised on the edge of an unseen tremor, threatening to shatter her perfect, desolate world. A faint whisper carried on the tremor, beckoned from beyond thick walls, a call to something new, unknown. It was a siren song hinting at a world beyond her curated reality, a promise of disruption that terrified and intrigued. The air grew heavy with unspoken possibility, and a singular curiosity unfurled within her, a fragile bloom in the arid landscape of her controlled existence, drawing her toward the source of that insistent vibration. The insistent vibration, a low thrum beneath the polished floors, began to resonate deeper, not merely through the resort's foundations, but within the very core of Yasmin's being, stirring a dormant unease. It was a rhythm alien to the measured cadence of her life, a pulse from a world she had meticulously distanced herself from, yet one that now demanded her attention with an undeniable pull. The heavy drapes, usually still as painted backdrops, now shivered imperceptibly at their edges, catching the soft light from the moon-kissed desert and refracting it in unsettling patterns across the intricate patterns of the oriental rugs. The air, once laden only with the cloying sweetness of rare orchids, now carried a subtle, almost metallic scent, sharp and unfamiliar, mingling with the heady perfumes of her curated sanctuary, creating a disquieting blend. Her finely tuned senses, accustomed to the predictable harmonies of luxury, strained against this new discord, each breath a shallow intake of burgeoning apprehension. A primal instinct, long suppressed beneath layers of societal expectation and polished composure, began to surface, a whisper of a wilder self that yearned to break free from the carefully constructed façade. The emerald ring on her finger, once a symbol of a love now tainted by gilded emptiness, felt suddenly heavy, a cold weight pressing against her skin, mirroring the chill that now traced its way up her spine. The vast silence of the dining hall, usually a testament to her isolation, now seemed to amplify the growing intensity of the outside world, a roaring quiet that pressed in on all sides. Her eyes, usually veiled behind a practiced serenity, now searched the opulent room with an uncharacteristic intensity, as if seeking an explanation within the familiar patterns of wealth that now felt so utterly alien. The meticulously arranged silver, glinting under the chandelier's sway, seemed to mock her composed exterior, reflecting a flicker of genuine fear she could no longer entirely conceal. She took a tentative step, her silken gown whispering against the marble floor, a sound swallowed almost immediately by the increasing drone from beyond the walls. The desert, her golden cage, was beginning to sing a different tune, one of power and an unbridled force that defied the controlled elegance of her existence. This was not the gentle hum of distant engines or the familiar sounds of the resort's discreet operations. This was something ancient, resonant, a profound call that vibrated through the very bedrock of the land, awakening echoes within her that she hadn't known existed. The intricate floral motifs carved into the dark wood paneling seemed to writhe in the dancing shadows, taking on an almost menacing quality, as if the very walls of her opulent prison were reacting to the unknown outside. Her hand instinctively went to her throat, a gesture of unexpected vulnerability, as a knot of fear and exhilaration tightened within her chest. This was a crossroads, a moment poised between the suffocating safety of her current reality and the terrifying allure of an untamed possibility. The whisper had grown into a distinct, low roar, a sound that promised not just disruption, but a complete overturning of her meticulously ordered world. It pulled at her, a magnetic force that defied logic and reason, drawing her towards the source with an irresistible, almost desperate curiosity. The controlled breath she had maintained for years now faltered, a desperate gasp for air in a world suddenly dense with unforeseen potential. She moved towards the grand archway, her heart pounding with a rhythm that mirrored the insistent thrum, drawn by the siren song of liberation and the terrifying beauty of the unknown, a perfect world threatening to shatter. A sharp, incongruous chirp sliced through the building crescendo, a delicate, tinny sound at odds with the ancient tremor still vibrating beneath her feet. It was Zayed's phone, a mundane intrusion that pulled the fabric of the moment taut and snapped it. The spell of dust and destiny dissolved, leaving ash on her tongue. He moved with effortless grace, drew the device from an inner pocket, glanced at the caller ID, offered a brief, almost imperceptible nod to someone unseen, a gesture of finality. Without a word or lingering look, he turned. His departure amputated the burgeoning tension. The heavy door, carved with intricate motifs, swung open and swallowed him as he vanished into the cool, pre-dawn air. Moments later, the low, authoritative growl of an engine announced a sleek, obsidian Rolls-Royce. Its polished surface, gleaming beneath a receding moon, reflected only the dark desert sky, consuming him entirely and leaving the faintest whisper of exhaust. Yasmin stood frozen, a statue in the opulent, suddenly silent hall, the echo of his exit tingling on her skin like a phantom of the power that had gone. The raw, exhilarating fear and the intoxicating pull of the unknown receded, replaced by a hollow ache heavier than the emerald ring on her finger. She had expected dismissal, calculated indifference, the casual cruelty of being ornamental. Doha, she had told herself, would be a gilded cage of elegant neglect, where her presence mattered only as part of the surroundings, her desires irrelevant. This departure stung differently. Not mere dismissal, but erasure. A swift removal from his orbit that left her feeling invisible, a ghost in her own lavish prison. The silence pressed in, no longer resonant with ancient power, but with the cold reality of isolation, amplifying the emptiness where expectation had been. The rug's patterns, the shimmering silver, even the air itself seemed to mock her, reflecting back insignificance, a woman utterly alone in a world that suddenly looked away. Her carefully constructed worldview, built on predictable social order and measured worth, began to crumble. She had believed in the tangible, the visible, the unspoken agreements of her rarefied circles, in immutable cause and effect within her domain. Yet this brief, bewildering encounter introduced a variable she hadn't counted on, a force beyond understanding. The world she knew felt flimsy, a paper-thin facade over an incomprehensible truth, a reality far more complex and indifferent than she had imagined. Foundations that had seemed solid were shifting sand, threatening to give way and plunge her into uncertainty. Disorientation took root, twisting perceptions of what was real and what was comforting illusion. What if the narratives she lived by were merely constructs meant to contain her, to blind her to true power? What if the detachment she wore as strength was, in fact, weakness, an inability to see the vibrant, terrifying dynamism beyond her cage? The thought, nascent and terrifying, bloomed in the sudden quiet, challenging everything she believed and leaving her adrift in unsettling questions. The desert outside, once a symbol of controlled freedom, now pulsed with silent judgment, its vastness mirroring the terrifying expanse of her doubt. The certainty she had worn like a second skin began to unravel, thread by painful thread, exposing a raw vulnerability she had hidden even from herself. Each elegant detail of the room, once comfort, now highlighted the chasm opening within her between the life she knew and the possibilities demanding reckoning. Her cultivated composure threatened to crack, revealing the terrified, lost woman beneath. The sudden cool embrace of the desert night air, sharp and unadorned, was a shock to senses long accustomed to temperature-controlled luxury. It was a clean breath, devoid of cloying perfumes and the stale scent of wealth, filling her lungs with a bracing chill that sent a shiver of pure, unadulterated sensation through her. Above her, the sky was not merely a distant expanse, but an immediate, overwhelming presence, a velvet tapestry strewn with 1,000 glittering diamonds, each star a pinprick of fierce, indifferent light. The silence, no longer a heavy shroud of isolation, hummed with the subtle, living pulse of the wilderness, the whisper of wind across sand, the distant, eerie call of an unseen creature, the rhythmic beat of her own liberated heart. Here there were no polished surfaces to reflect a curated image, no ornate carvings to define her space, only the boundless horizon, an invitation to dissolve into the immensity of the unknown. Her bare feet, so recently graced by marble and plush rugs, now sank slightly into the soft, cool sand, a grounding sensation that tethered her to this new reality. Each grain, a tiny world underfoot, spoke of ancient movements, of unhurried shifts, a stark contrast to the frantic manufactured pace of her previous existence. The faint roar that had beckoned her now seemed to recede, transforming into a symphony of elemental forces, the wind a lead vocalist, the shifting dunes a percussion section. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the vastness wash over her, a cleansing tide that stripped away years of pretense and performance. The emerald ring, once a heavy reminder of her gilded cage, felt lighter now, a mere ornament on a hand that longed to touch the raw, unpolished textures of the world. When her eyes reopened, they saw with a clarity that felt entirely new, unclouded by the haze of expectation. The resort, a glowing monument to human artifice, was a dwindling speck behind her, its light absorbed by the hungry darkness of the desert. She was moving away from it, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. A profound curiosity, untainted by fear, guided her steps, a silent compass pointing towards an authentic future. The sheer magnitude of the desert stretched before her, an intimidating yet exhilarating blank page. It held no history of her past, no whispers of who she should be, only the promise of what she might become. This was the true Doha, not the city of towering glass and designer boutiques, but the ancient heartland, raw and beautiful, untamed and uncompromising. The taste of the air, a blend of mineral dust and an almost spiritual freshness, filled her mouth, invigorating her. It was the taste of freedom, of choice, of a life yet to be written. The weight of her meticulously crafted image, a burden she hadn't realized the full extent of until now, lifted like a forgotten garment. She extended her hands, palms open to the starlit sky, embracing the untamed wilderness with a profound, almost primal acceptance. This was a baptism, a reawakening, a shedding of the self she had been for the self she was destined to be. The rhythmic crunch of sand beneath her feet was no longer a march of desperation but a dance of discovery. Each shadow cast by the subtle moonlight seemed to hold a secret, an untold story, inviting her deeper into its embrace. The golden cage had not merely shattered, it had dissolved, leaving behind only the boundless expanse of her own courageous heart. The journey was just beginning, a whisper on the wind carrying her forward into the boundless expanse of her true self, an odyssey stretching under the indifferent, magnificent stars. The journey stretched before her, an uncharted landscape, mirroring the expanse unfolding within her spirit. With every stride, the desert offered not desolation, but belonging, as if the ancient sands had waited for the imprint of her feet. The cool night air, once startling, became a comforting caress against her skin, an affirmation of her new reality. Above, constellations blazed beyond human concerns, each star a silent witness to her metamorphosis. The resort, a glimmer in the distance, felt like a faded dream. Its shimmering lights, once symbols of confinement, now pinpricks against the dark, holding no sway over her liberated soul. She felt kinship with the wind, a silent force that sculpted dunes and whispered secrets. It tugged at her gown, no longer an encumbrance but a light banner of transition. The weight of jewels, intricate hairstyles, and a rehearsed smile had evaporated, leaving a lightness nearing euphoria. Her emerald ring, still on her finger, ceased to be a chain and became a solitary memento, a relic of a past life whose cold gleam was muted by honest moonlight. Liberation reached every sense, breath deep and unhurried, drawing in the desert's mineral earthiness and crisp clarity, a fragrance of resilience. The rhythmic whisper of sand underfoot matched a beat in her chest, a primal drum speaking of endurance and courage. She was no longer fleeing. She was running toward an unfiltered existence. Each dune beckoned not with danger, but discovery, revealing a world once hidden behind gilded curtains. The silence brimmed with life. Unseen creatures scuttled, sands sighed, and the universe hummed. This chorus soothed a soul starved for genuine harmony. A deep peace settled over her, quiet joy alien to her former life, free of pretense and imagined audiences. Under indifferent, magnificent stars, she was simply Yasmin, unadorned, unedited, utterly real. Fear that had squeezed her throat dissolved, replaced by purpose and a pull toward the horizon. The future, once rigid, was now an open narrative she could write. Her hands felt strong and capable, ready for whatever wonders this expanse held. The desert was no mere place but a state of being, reflecting strength and wildness finally unearthed. This odyssey, born of whispered rebellion, had become testament to a soul rediscovering its true north, stretching into an endless, starlit promise. Yet as the last remnants of gilded past receded, a new challenge surfaced, one entangling her freedom with old demands. An unexpected dinner invitation from Zayed, whose enigmatic charm had long held sway, introduced a ripple of apprehension. Despite her fierce commitment to freedom and work that now ignited her purpose, his persistence and mysterious aura began to chip at her resolve. The thought of revisiting a world she'd escaped, even for just one dinner, stirred faint echoes of old constraints, a quiet test of will. This was not surrender, she reminded herself, but a detour, a negotiation of boundaries she was strong enough to define. The limitless expanse remained her canvas, now shimmered with the first complexities of freedom that demands vigilance and self-assurance. The silent battle within Yasmin, a conflict between the professional resolve that anchored her to work and the burgeoning intrigue stirred by Zayed, had reached its quiet resolution. His digital invitation, once a tempting disruption, transformed into a chosen path. The helipad terrace, a stage for her ambition, now felt like a prelude to a different kind of performance under the vast, compelling Doha sky. She knew with a certainty that pricked at her conscience that she should prioritize her meticulously planned career, a trajectory she had carefully carved for herself. Yet Zayed's words, "real Doha," echoed in her thoughts, weaving through the vibrant energy of the city, hinting at a world beyond the polished facades and curated experiences, a world she was now ready to explore. His persistence, subtle yet insistent, had ignited a spark of curiosity she hadn't realized lay dormant. There was an unspoken challenge in his invitation, a suggestion of depths beneath the surface she had only begun to perceive. He wasn't like the others, she mused, recalling their brief, captivating encounter. The conventional wisdom that dictated her cautious approach began to waver, softening under the weight of an uncharacteristic pull toward the unknown. It was a fleeting, dangerous thought, acknowledging the allure of a mystery she felt compelled to unravel, if only a little. The demanding schedule, the constant pressure of image, the very essence of her carefully constructed identity as a rising model, all seemed momentarily insignificant against the backdrop of this unexpected proposal. A single dinner, he had said. No pressure. The words were a silken promise, a gentle coaxing that chipped away at her reservations. What harm could come from one evening? The questions that swirled around Zayed, the enigma of his character, whispered to a part of her that craved more than predictable luxury. It was a yearning for something authentic, a glimpse behind the gilded curtain of her own existence. Her fingers hovered over the screen, poised between a polite refusal and an impulsive acceptance. The Doha skyline, a breathtaking panorama of light and ambition, seemed to shimmer with a new personal significance. This city, once a mere destination, now held the potential for an unscripted moment, a detour from the path she had so diligently followed. The whisper of just one dinner, repeated in her mind, transformed from a simple statement into an irresistible proposition. She would go, if only to satisfy the insistent curiosity, to peel back a layer of the intriguing world Zayed seemed to inhabit. The decision, though seemingly small, felt momentous, a silent step onto a divergent path. The designated hour arrived, a sleek black car pulling up with quiet precision at precisely 8 o'clock. A polite man in traditional Emiri attire, his movements imbued with a respectful deference, drove the vehicle. Yasmin, stepping inside, felt a fresh surge of anticipation. The city's lights blurred into a vibrant tapestry as they navigated the streets. Upon their arrival, the glass sky lounge unfolded before her, a luxurious rooftop sanctuary. Her breath hitched at the sheer elegance. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, scattering light like 1,000 fallen stars, illuminating a breathtaking panoramic view of the Doha skyline. It was a scene of dazzling sophistication, a world away from her expectations. Across the expanse, a figure stood awaiting her. Zayed, impeccably handsome in a tailored black suit that seemed to absorb the ambient light, turned as she approached, his gaze unwavering, a subtle smile playing on his lips, a silent welcome to an evening that promised to redefine everything. The vastness of the desert night swallowed her, not in fear, but in a tender, welcoming embrace. The silence that had once felt like a suffocating blanket now vibrated with the subtle hum of nocturnal life, a living symphony unfolding around her. She ceased to be a posed figure in a curated tableau and became a fleeting shadow, ephemeral and exquisitely free on an ancient canvas. Each breath tasted of pure air and possibility, a stark contrast to the perfumed opulence she had shed with each decisive step. The distant lights of the resort, once a cold beacon of her gilded prison, winked like forgotten dreams against a cosmos of stars so dense they seemed almost liquid, pouring across the velvet sky. Her bare feet found rhythm on the cool sand, carrying her with a quiet, undeniable urgency toward an elusive, palpable truth. The crescent moon, a sliver of silver, cast long shadows that danced with her, guiding her deeper into this untamed expanse. She felt a lightness in her step, a buoyancy that spoke of shackles cast aside and a spirit unbound. The desert wind, a playful conspirator in her rebellion, whispered ancient tales of wanderers and discoveries, rustling her gown like a triumphant banner. It was a language she was only beginning to understand, a dialogue between her newly liberated soul and the land. Each gust carried the promise of something new, a fragment of destiny scattered across the dunes, waiting for her to claim it. The emerald on her finger, once a conspicuous symbol of her cage, now caught the honest moonlight, a subdued gleam in the benevolent dark, a reminder of where she had been, not where she was bound. The crisp night air, once discomfort, became an invigorating balm, sharpening her senses to every shift in the landscape, every distant sound. She was no longer a passive observer, but an active thread in the desert's nocturnal ballet. Fear had not vanished, but was transmuted into a thrilling anticipation, a respect for the beautiful unknown ahead. It was not danger, but the prospect of unscripted existence, of charting her own course beneath the indifferent, magnificent gaze of the universe. The unending horizon beckoned, inviting her to redefine herself, to shed the last vestiges of a past that no longer held dominion. Her journey was not mere movement, but an irreversible inner recalibration, an emergence into a self she was only now beginning to embrace. Her heartbeat, once frantic against a confining cage, now pulsed with the steady beat of the desert, resonant with creation. She was not lost. She was found, unburdened, and utterly present. The silence was her confidant, the stars her guides, the shifting sand her path. Each breath was a silent prayer of gratitude for this terrifying, liberating freedom, a testament to a soul rediscovering its true north and charting its luminous course across the infinite desert of awakening. The infinite desert of awakening stretched before Yasmin, each grain of sand a testament to timelessness, a contrast to the calibrated moments of her former life. The wind, now constant, wove through her hair, not a symbol of careful grooming, but a wild banner, unfurling against the indifferent sky. She walked with purpose, her bare feet finding purchase on the cool, yielding earth. Each step declared her severance from the gilded cage she had inhabited. The distant lights of the resort, once a magnetic pull of false comfort, now seemed a mirage fading into the dark, holding no power over the woman she was becoming. The tapestry of stars above, previously admired from behind glass, felt intimately close, each celestial body a silent, knowing eye, witnessing her radical transformation and the freedom she had only dreamed of. A shift in the air, a scent beyond mineral dust and desert cold pricked her senses. A faint, familiar fragrance, jasmine and exotic spices, came on a gust distinct from the general breeze. Her steps faltered, a ripple in her newfound rhythm. A tremor of unease, unexpected yet real, coursed through her, a dissonant note in the symphony of liberation. The desert's immense quiet, once solace, now seemed to hold a bated breath, anticipating something or someone. Her gaze swept the horizon, seeking a break in the seamless expanse, a point of origin for this intrusion. The fairy tale of her escape, unfolding within her spirit, felt poised on the precipice of an unsettling turn, a revelation threatening to reshape her sense of sanctuary. Then, emerging from the shadowed dune, a figure materialized, a silhouette against the lesser stars, moving with a grace both familiar and out of place in this raw landscape. Its form resolved into Samira. A gasp caught in Yasmin's throat, not of fear, but of profound disbelief, a wrench back to a world she believed she had abandoned. Samira, her face etched with concern and a resigned sadness, approached, her silken robes rustling against the sand. The sight of her friend, a direct link to the opulence she had fled, sent a chilling clarity through Yasmin, piercing the idyllic bubble of awakening. The desert, her canvas of rebirth, suddenly felt less like sanctuary and more like a stage where the past refused to be erased. Samira's presence was a living reminder of the tangled threads of Yasmin's old life, a stark contrast to the unadorned truth she sought. The faint smile on Samira's lips held affection and an unspoken warning, a silent language Yasmin understood instinctively. It was the look of someone who knew the weight of the world Yasmin had discarded and the unseen dangers still lurking beyond the walls of her newfound courage. The stars, once indifferent guides, now twinkled with a knowing, almost ominous light, casting long shadows between the two women. A quiet dread, cold and insistent, began to braid with the exhilaration Yasmin had felt. The fairy tale she had embraced, the story of her unburdening, suddenly felt exposed, its fragile beauty vulnerable to the harsh realities Samira represented. The warning in Samira's eyes was clear, a silent prophecy of challenges to come, of an innocence that might not last against deeper currents. Yasmin's liberated heart, which had thrummed with the desert's beat, now felt a prickle of caution. The path to true selfhood was rarely uncomplicated. The limitless expanse, once an inviting blank page, now promised intricate new chapters, some perhaps more perilous than she had imagined. Her odyssey of awakening had met its first formidable twist, a whispered caution against the boundless joy of an unbridled spirit. The boundless joy of an unbridled spirit flickered, shadowed by a chill of nascent apprehension snaking through Yasmin's veins. Samira's presence, an unexpected anchor to the life she had discarded, cast a long shadow over the illuminated expanse of her newfound freedom. The desert, which moments ago had felt like an endless sanctuary, now seemed to hold its breath, a silent witness to this jarring intrusion from her past. The comforting vastness transformed into a stage where the drama of her escape might unravel, its fragile beauty threatened by the complexities Samira represented. The scent of jasmine and spices, once a distant echo of comfort, now carried the suffocating weight of societal expectation. Clinging to the cool air and whispering of obligations she had believed herself free from. Yasmin's eyes, which had blazed with a hunger for the unknown, searched Samira's face, seeking not answers but understanding of the unspoken warning that had muted her euphoria. The delicate lines around Samira's eyes, usually alight with warmth, were now etched with profound weariness, knowledge of burdens Yasmin was only beginning to comprehend. It was a weariness born not of exertion, but of carrying the weight of a gilded existence, a truth that resonated within Yasmin's soul. The stars, which had earlier felt like compassionate guides, now observed with indifferent, almost foreboding light, their ballet continuing heedless of the human drama below. A subtle, unspoken battle of wills played out between them. Samira's unwavering gaze held a plea, a silent urging to return to the predictable safety of her former life, to the illusion of control within the gilded cage. But Yasmin, though shaken, felt a stubborn defiance ignite. The desert's beat, which had begun to harmonize with her own, pulsed with an insistence to remain true to the path she had chosen. She had tasted freedom, felt the rush of unburdened air, and to retreat now felt like betraying the wild spirit she had begun to embrace. The sand beneath her feet, once a symbol of liberation, felt like solid ground under a spirit assailed by doubt. The silence between them was no longer peaceful, but charged with unspoken histories and diverging paths. Yasmin's fingers, which had traced the cool air in nascent freedom, tightened into fists, a silent assertion of rediscovered strength. The emerald ring, a solitary memento, gleamed with a sharper, more resolute light, no longer confinement, but defiant individuality. The fear of the unknown, which had dissolved in the exhilaration of escape, returned, not as paralyzing terror, but as sober acknowledgement of the challenges ahead. The journey she had embarked upon, once a blank page, now presented its first intricate chapter, its lines being etched by the shadows of her past. The crisp night air, once an invigorating balm, felt like a cool breath of reality, sharpening her senses to complexities beyond the simplistic narrative of escape. Samira was a mirror, reflecting the expectations and traditions Yasmin had dared to defy, a tangible link to the world that would not easily release its hold. The desert, once a canvas for rebirth, felt like an arena where her resolve would be tested and her courage pushed to its limits. This was not the end of a fairy tale, but its true beginning, a journey far more profound and perilous than she had dared imagine, where the whispers of the past would contend with the roaring promises of a future she was determined to forge on her own terms, under the indifferent, magnificent stars. The path ahead was no longer an open invitation, but a winding trail shadowed by echoes of what she had left behind, each step a declaration against a world that still sought to define her. The carefully curated images, broadcast into the shimmering ether, were a silent scream swallowed by the vast, indifferent digital landscape. Each smiling selfie, each glossy video of her opulent surroundings felt like another brick meticulously laid in the walls of her own elaborate prison, cementing the illusion of a life she no longer recognized as her own. She was a master performer, her fingers dancing across the screen with practiced ease, conjuring a world of effortless beauty and boundless joy for an audience that consumed her fabricated happiness with insatiable hunger. The comments flooded in. Adoration, envy, a relentless stream of praise that felt like a mockery of the profound emptiness echoing within her. They saw the sparkling crystal chandeliers, the gleam of 24K gold-plated tableware, the exotic blooms in handcrafted marble vases, but they never saw the woman behind the flawless façade, the one whose heart beat a slow, melancholic rhythm against the gilded bars of her existence. Her days unfolded with a predictable, suffocating grace, each moment orchestrated for public consumption. She would rise in the dawn, the desert sunrise painting the sky with hues of fire and rose, a spectacular vista she often captured with her phone, adding a poetic caption about gratitude and blessings. Yet, her gaze lingered on the distant, untamed dunes, a yearning in her soul for their raw, unyielding freedom. The soft rustle of haute couture abayas, selected with meticulous care to project an image of demure elegance, felt like a heavy shroud, concealing not just her form, but her very spirit. Her chiffon headscarves, exquisitely draped over sleek, expensive wigs, were crowns of a different kind, symbols of a lost identity, of vibrant, natural beauty, now meticulously hidden beneath layers of conformity. She moved through the vast, silent rooms of the luxury desert resort, a lone figure amidst unparalleled splendor, a pearl on velvet, admired for her placement, but stripped of her essence. The luxury hookah, its LED base glowing softly in a secluded lounge, became a silent confidant to her unspoken grief, its ornate beauty a chilling parallel to her own ornamental role. She would sometimes trace the intricate patterns on the carved ivory mirror, watching her reflection, a stranger with perfectly styled hair and impeccably applied makeup, her eyes holding a ghost of the girl she once was. The theme of beauty, riches, and a solitary heart played out in every hushed corner of her palatial home, a tragic melody only she could hear. Each lavish gift from Zayed, a diamond necklace or a designer bag, felt less like affection and more like another link in the chain, a silken bind disguised as adoration. The golden skyline of Doha, once a symbol of boundless opportunity, now shimmered in the distance, a breathtaking vista of her beautiful prison, a constant reminder of the world she had traded for this gilded cage. Her smile for the camera became a well-rehearsed performance, a mask so perfectly crafted it had fused with her skin, hiding the profound ache of a spirit slowly suffocating. The silence was not peace, but a canvas amplifying her private grief. A vast, echoing chamber where she was utterly alone, a desert rose in a glass dome, beautiful, contained, and slowly wilting. The poignant warning she sometimes whispered in her posts, "Don't envy what's behind the videos," was a desperate plea to herself, a heartbreaking acknowledgement of her own tragic reality. She was a silent tableau of exquisite sorrow, admired by millions, known by none. The air, a confection of oud and jasmine, carried the unspoken weight of her unchosen destiny, each breath a shallow testament to the life she performed. The mirrors in her palatial suite reflected a succession of flawless images, none truly her own, each smile a practiced curve, a silent testament to years spent perfecting the art of gracious despair. Her fingers, used to the cool caress of precious fabrics and gleaming jewels, hovered over the empty space beside her, a phantom ache for a touch that recognized the woman beneath the layers of silk and expectation, a whisper of connection in a world deafened by opulence. The gilded cage, beautiful in its construction, vibrated with a silent hum of isolation, a frequency only she could perceive, a reminder of the unseen bars that bound her spirit. The city of Doha, a shimmering mirage of wealth beyond her soundproofed windows, offered no solace. Its towers were extensions of the walls that enclosed her, each glass facade reflecting her own entrapment. She was curator of her public myth, architect of an illusion. Every social media post, every appearance another detail woven into a tapestry of a life designed for others' consumption, a grand narrative where her true self remained off stage. The whispers of adoration from global followers, once fleeting comfort, now felt like a relentless chorus of unseeing eyes, their praise a distant, mocking echo in the empty chambers of her heart, underscoring the solitude that permeated her days. There were moments, dangerous and fleeting, when the facade threatened to crack, when the raw, unedited pain yearned to break through the polished surface. a desperate, silent cry against the suffocating quiet. She would then retreat further into opulent folds, burying yearning beneath another layer of designer silk, another posed photograph, another chosen hashtag of insincere gratitude that tasted like ash. The scent of her expensive perfume, a bespoke blend of rare roses and amber, clung to her like a second skin, a fragrant prison of her own making, a constant reminder of the luxurious emptiness surrounding her. The soft glow of her phone, a portal to a world both adoring and blind, illuminated the stark contrast between the vibrant persona she projected and the quiet, aching soul within. Her eyes, often downcast in public displays of demure humility, held a profound, almost ancient sadness in private, a silent narrative of dreams deferred and a vibrant spirit slowly fading, like a tapestry exposed to harsh sun. The upcoming event, a grand pronouncement whispered in opulent halls, felt less like a celebration of love and more like the final sealing of her fate, another choreographed spectacle in the endless performance of her life, where her role was defined and her individuality subsumed. The desert outside, once a symbol of untamed freedom and possibility, now felt impossibly distant. Its wild heart beat a rhythm she could no longer join, its boundless expanse a cruel reflection of her constricted world, a vastness she could only observe from behind glass. She was a living masterpiece of exquisite sorrow, framed and endlessly admired by millions yet tragically known by none, awaiting the final brushstroke of a destiny she had not chosen, but that had chosen her. The quiet dread twining around her heart, a cold vine, was not for the spectacle itself, but for the irreversible solitude it promised, a future glinting with cold gold but devoid of warmth or light. Each breath was a silent plea for a narrative unwritten by expectation, for a life where her voice was not a faint whisper in a gilded hall, but a vibrant, uninhibited song under an open sky, unfettered by an insatiable audience. Her every gesture, every silent sigh, spoke of a woman suspended between two worlds, the glittering illusion and the crushing truth, each moment a poignant struggle for genuine existence within the confines of her celebrated desolate reality. For a fleeting season, the insistent struggle for genuine existence receded, muted by the shimmering facade of her nascent marriage. Zayed embodied an attentive husband, his presence a comforting, sometimes formal anchor in their palatial home. His dark gaze, quietly intense, sought hers and for a while made her feel seen, a rare solace amid public scrutiny. He moved with deliberate grace, each action designed to enfold Yasmin in opulent affection, diamonds that caught the light, silks that whispered promises, bespoke perfumes that clung like a second skin. Habibti, murmured against her hair in their private evenings, held a warmth that seeped into her bones. Their shared silence, once terrifying, felt briefly like understanding. Yasmin leaned into the idyll, allowing a temporary respite from the weariness that had been her constant companion, permitting herself to believe this grand public narrative might be the beginning of a quiet contentment. His hand often found hers across the dining table, a silent communication of connection that bound her to the illusion. But as months unfolded, like ribbons revealing a starker truth, a chilling erosion began. Zayed's warmth waned slowly, more insidious than a sudden cold. His attentive gaze grew remote, silences stretched into echoing chasms, and his hand, once reaching for hers, now rested indifferent at his side. The lavish gifts continued, but their presentation lost tenderness and became gestures of duty, beautiful, cold barriers to intimacy. Habibti slipped into habit, its glow dissipating like mist under a harsh sun, leaving a faint bitterness that pricked her. She traced the patterns on her silk robes with restless fingers, wrestling with subtle shifts that tightened the invisible threads of her gilded, suffocating cage. The fairy tale she'd embraced frayed at the edges, the brilliant colors dimmed, revealing the plain threads of a reality far less enchanting. Quiet despair seeped back beneath the surface of their impeccable life, reminding her that true connection remained an elusive mirage. During one fragile moment of solace, a clandestine call with Samira, the facade finally fractured. Yasmin, forgetting the silent rules that governed her expressions, let a genuine peal of laughter escape, bright and uninhibited. Zayed, who had entered with a silent predatory tread, froze, His eyes sharpened, and the sound died in the air. The room chilled. He approached with deliberate steps, asserting an authority that unnerved her. His voice, low and controlled, carried an unyielding command. You laugh too much when you speak to your friends. A married woman should behave with dignity. The word habibti became an empty shell, its warmth extinguished. That moment was the first undeniable crack in their polished fairy tale, an exposure of the cold bedrock of control beneath the glitter. Fear knotted in her throat as the fragile magic began to collapse. The indifferent stars seemed to twinkle with somber knowing as the golden reins of her marriage tightened, defining her existence within narrow, stifling confines, each breath a testament to a freedom compromised. The opulent halls of her suite, once a sanctuary of cultivated peace, now echoed with a hollowness that amplified her unease. The air, heavy with exotic blooms and the faint perfume of anticipation, pressed against her like a weight. Every polished surface, every tapestry thread, reflected not her image, but the web of expectations tightening around her, each strand a silken leash. Her practiced smile felt brittle beneath the scrutiny of her reflection. She was a jewel in a crafted setting, admired for brilliance but captive, her sparkle a performance for an unseen audience. The desert beyond the soundproofed windows pulsed with wild energy she could almost taste, a stark contrast to the stillness of her gilded prison. A tremor, subtle yet insistent, ran through her composure. Not a physical vibration, but a stirring of a dormant spirit, refusing to be swallowed by her public persona. The fabrics she touched, the cool gleam of emeralds and diamonds, offered no solace, only reminders of the cost of confinement. Her gaze, usually veiled, held a flicker of hope, a yearning for genuine connection in a world of surface. The city's hum, a distant symphony of ambition, seemed to mock the quiet despair settling within. Each chime of a clock reminded her of time slipping away and the last traces of herself. She moved through the room with phantom grace, each step a protest against the predetermined choreography of her life. The soft rustle of her gown echoed the nascent rebellion in her chest. Pausing at a towering window, she pressed her hand to the cool glass, a silent plea to the boundless sky beyond. The stars, once indifferent, now winked with knowing empathy, their ancient light an invitation to another narrative. The manicured gardens below felt artificial, their constrained beauty mirroring her existence. A solitary tear escaped the carefully constructed façade and traced her cheek. Her solitude sharpened into an insistent pain, a cry for authenticity in a world that prized illusion. She longed for a touch that saw beyond the surface, a voice that heard the unspoken truths of her heart. The silence was not peace, but a suffocating shroud, amplifying the beat of her despair against the bars of her self-made prison. The scent of oud, once luxurious, had grown cloying, the perfume of a life she no longer wished to inhabit. Each ornate detail of this gilded cage reminded her of lost freedom, muted dreams, and a fading spirit. She closed her eyes for refuge, but the desert beckoned, a siren song of liberation she could no longer ignore. Her hands, once composed, tightened in a silent assertion of burgeoning strength. The path ahead, shrouded in uncertainty, terrified her, yet the thought of remaining inspired a dread far greater than any unknown. She stood poised at the precipice, a silent scream building within, ready to shatter the polished veneer and leap into the vast, exhilarating abyss of her own making, a woman on the verge of reclaiming her unwritten destiny under the indifferent, magnificent stars. Whispers of the past would contend with the roaring promises of a future she would forge on her own terms. The path ahead was no open invitation, but a winding trail shadowed by echoes of what she had left behind, each step a declaration against a world still trying to define her. The golden cage had grown impossibly small, its opulent confines pressing in with suffocating intensity. Each ornament, once prestige, now felt like a barb catching at the delicate threads of her resolve. The silence throbbed with terrifying anticipation, a sense of imminent shift that would either break her or finally set her free. Her heart, a captive bird, beat against her ribs with a frantic rhythm, mirroring an unyielding destiny drawing nearer. The subtle movements of unseen creatures, the sigh of shifting sands, The hum of the cosmos formed a chorus that soothed a soul long starved for harmony. Her breath, no longer constrained, flowed deep and unhurried, drawing in the desert's mineral earthiness and crisp clarity. She was not running from something but toward an authentic existence. Each dune beckoned with the promise of discovery, facets of a world once hidden behind gilded curtains. The echoes of her past seemed distant, absorbed by the immensity of the present and powerless against the promises of a future she would forge on her own terms. The patriarch's control escalated, each demand tightening the silken reins she had once barely perceived. Zayed's words, sharp and unyielding, dictated the fabric of her public existence. He insisted on modest haute couture abayas, each exquisite garment a beautiful prison subtly restricting her movements and concealing her spirit. Her excursions beyond the resort's gates were now under his strict purview, her ability to go out alone curtailed, each driver a silent guardian. The digital world, once her stage, became another arena for his dominance when he demanded she delete a public selfie, his low, authoritative rumble echoing through the suite. His wife did not seek attention from strangers. Yasmin's heart, a frantic drum, pounded with a terrifying clarity, a chilling echo of Samira's ominous prophecy. Time will tell, confirming that the truth was now unfolding, stark and undeniable. At the very edge of her known world, where the last shimmering illusions crumbled, a visceral awareness ignited in Yasmin, the untamed spirit beneath years of cultivated composure. The air, once heavy with the sweetness of exotic blooms and the stale scent of wealth, thinned to a bracing clarity. Each inhale offered the promise of untainted breath. A profound lightness bloomed in the hollow of her chest, a fragile flower pushing through hardened earth toward a sun glimpsed only through glass. The silence that had been a suffocating blanket became a receptive expanse, a stillness resonant with the nascent hum of her authentic voice. Her eyes, used to the muted gleam of confined luxury, strained toward an unseen horizon where shadows danced with possibility rather than despair, a promise of light beyond her gilded prison. The tapestries of her former life, woven with expectation and scrutiny, began to fray, revealing a wild landscape free of pretense. Each heartbeat, no longer frantic with fear, pulsed with a deep, resonant rhythm, a primal drum echoing the desert's heart. A quiet crescendo built toward an eruption that would redefine her existence, reshaping identity with a force both terrifying and irresistible, pulling her toward the unknown. The emerald on her finger, once a cold weight, now shimmered with inner fire, a beacon of defiant individuality beneath layers of silk and silence. She stood between the crumbling past and the thrilling void of her future, every nerve ending alive with the electric current of imminent change, the exquisite agony and promise of becoming. The suite's opulent walls, once a shield, felt strangely translucent, barely containing the storm within her, a silent roar gathering to shatter not just glass, but the constructed lies of her life. Her spirit, a captive bird, stretched its wings, testing the invisible confines for the precise moment of rupture, where confinement yielded to flight. The silence of the suite ceased to be isolation and became a prelude, a hushed anticipation before the overture of an unwritten life. This was the final breath before the plunge, a moment charged with destiny and the intoxicating terror of freedom. A ripple of defiance traced her spine, a silent challenge to the past and a fire ignited within. The scent of blooms, once comfort, turned cloying, a reminder of the luxurious emptiness she would abandon. Her vision blurred, not with tears, but with the pressure of past regrets and future possibilities. A faint tremor moved through the marble beneath her feet, a sympathetic sign of the disruption she craved. The golden threads that had bound her felt taut and brittle, poised to snap under the pressure of her desire for liberation. She imagined them fraying and breaking, each severance releasing another fragment of her authentic self. The weight of her crafted image lifted like an unnecessary garment, revealing raw vulnerability that was terrifying and liberating. The air shimmered with crackling energy, the breath of the desert, mineral dust and distant freedom invading her gilded prison. Her hands once posed felt capable, ready to seize her destiny. The unknown, once paralyzing, became a magnet pulling her toward the abyss. She was a meteor, burning and poised to streak across a limitless sky, leaving behind the predictable orbit of her former life. The walls felt porous, ready to crumble at the touch of her awakened will. Her being hummed with a primal vibration of irreversible change, a spirit breaking free, not with violent crash, but slow, majestic unfurling, like a desert rose blooming under the sun. The world she knew contracted as a new reality expanded, a canvas awaiting the hues of her unwritten future. She drew a deep, shuddering breath of untainted possibility. Her lips parted, not to speak, but to embrace the roaring promise of a life forged on her own terms, under indifferent, magnificent stars, her true odyssey beginning beyond the final veil of illusion. Her existence, a meticulously crafted tableau of extreme wealth, felt less like a life and more like an exquisite display. Each day, she was the pearl on velvet, perfectly positioned amidst glittering 24K gold-plated tableware and the intricate beauty of a decorative luxury hookah, a silent ornament in a world designed for outward admiration. Yet within her, a profound sense of confinement gnawed, a spirit held captive despite the boundless opulence. Zayed's possessiveness, once a subtle undercurrent, intensified with each passing week, manifesting in veiled warnings, a gentle but firm confiscation of her phone during social gatherings, or the unyielding expectation of her presence by his side. Paradoxically, each new assertion of control was immediately followed by a cascade of lavish gifts, diamond necklaces that felt like shimmering chains, limited edition Chanel bags that carried the weight of her diminished freedom, and spontaneous Paris shopping sprees that underscored her gilded cage rather than liberating her. A Swarovski lantern in her lavish surroundings, its facets catching and refracting light in dazzling patterns, seemed to mock her. Its brilliant glow mirrored her own outwardly radiant life, yet it remained contained, its light a contained spectacle, much like her own constrained existence, a beautiful prisoner in a world that saw only her glitter. The air, heavy with the scent of exotic blooms, now carried the faint metallic tang of her growing desperation, a subtle discord in the symphony of her opulent prison. She was a silent tableau, admired by millions, yet profoundly unknown to herself, her every breath a testament to the suffocating grandeur of her unchosen destiny. The jewel-encrusted evening settled over the estate, cloaking the world in a deceptive calm that belied the unease inside Yasmin. Through the arched windows, the city lights shimmered like scattered diamonds, a cruel mockery of her glittering, confining life. She picked up her phone, its cold surface a familiar solace, a thin portal beyond her gilded prison, not for connection, but for the shallow distraction of scrolling. A curated tapestry of distant, unattainable lives slipped past her thumb in a numbing ritual. The frankincense that usually comforted her now clung like the perfume of her cage, and she lost herself in the stream until a single image leapt from the screen and seized her. A gala snapshot. Zayed, immaculate in white, his smile a beacon of power. Beside him, a woman who took the air from Yasmin's lungs, poised, confident, radiating effortless belonging. The photo pulsed with intimacy, a sharp contrast to Yasmin's seclusion. Beneath it, a line of text landed with the heat of desert sun. Sheikh Zayed Al Hamad, seen with rumored second wife making a grand entrance at the Royal Charity Gala. Cold, clinical words hardened into an undeniable truth. A sickening jolt buckled her knees, nausea swept through her. The world tilted, tapestries and 24K gold blurred into a vortex of betrayal. Her breath caught, a jagged gasp lodged in her throat. The shimmering façade of her unique position imploded in a silent, deafening ruin. Air thickened around her, stealing oxygen until a primal urge to flee rose within. Her fingers went clammy on the phone, its glow a malevolent eye mocking her luxurious blindness. Dread, colder than any winter wind, seeped into her bones as the caption's meaning settled like a shroud. This was no rumor. It was a public declaration, crafted to be seen, to dismantle every fragile hope she'd nurtured. As her composure frayed, Zayed's unhurried footsteps sounded in the antechamber. Each measured step struck like a hammer, turning tremor into earthquake. He appeared in the doorway, silhouette framed by the softly lit corridor, pristine in his dishdasha, serene, oblivious, or deliberately indifferent to the cataclysm he'd unleashed. His gaze met her wide, horrified eyes, then a faint, almost imperceptible nod, as if acknowledging a mere accessory. His dismissive "Insha'Allah," uttered months before when she had gently questioned their future, echoed now with terrifying weight. It was not pious resignation, but a pronouncement of a fate he had already arranged, a preemption of her protests that now read as pre-planned betrayal. When her voice finally broke free of shock, it was a strained whisper, edged and fierce. The words were soft but heavy, with a world upended, a desperate cry against the silent opulence around them. The confrontation, scarcely spoken, hung between them, snapping the last thread of illusion. She met his gaze not with submission, but with stark, challenging defiance, a nascent fire promising reckoning, and a future irrevocably altered. The wild heart of her own becoming beat with a fierce, unwavering rhythm, a cadence that resonated through the vast, star-dusted expanse surrounding her. Each gust of wind across the ancient sands felt like a breath shared, a silent communion with a world stripped bare of artifice, mirroring the raw honesty blooming within her. The desert floor, cool beneath her feet, was no longer merely ground but a living parchment, awaiting the unfolding story of a spirit unchained. The distant lights of the resort, once a glittering symbol of her beautiful prison, had dwindled to mere pinpricks, finally extinguished by the boundless darkness and the overwhelming promise of an uncharted dawn. She was no longer gazing at a horizon. She was part of it, an intrinsic thread woven into the fabric of a limitless tapestry, where every star held a whisper of her own unwritten fate. A profound silence enveloped her, not the suffocating stillness of her past, but a vibrant, pregnant hush that amplified the subtle symphony of nocturnal life, the rustle of unseen wings, the soft murmur of shifting dunes, the vast humming breath of the cosmos. This was a music only the truly free could hear, a melody that resonated with the burgeoning truth of her own existence. The emerald on her finger, once a cold reminder of gilded chains, now pulsed with a soft, inner luminescence, a testament to resilience, a quiet beacon reflecting the unwavering strength she had finally embraced. It was a jewel no longer defined by its setting, but by the wild light it absorbed from the untamed night, a solitary, defiant gleam in the boundless dark. With every step, the phantom weight of expectations, the suffocating cloak of public persona, shed like forgotten skin, leaving behind a lightness that verged on pure, unadulterated joy. Her hands, once clasped in elegant restraint, now hung open, receptive to the cool air, ready to grasp the raw, unpolished textures of this new reality. The world she had meticulously constructed for others had dissolved, revealing a landscape of boundless possibility, a canvas awaiting the vibrant hues of her deepest desires. There was no fear now, only a thrilling anticipation, a magnetic pull towards a destiny she would sculpt with her own hands, under the indifferent, magnificent gaze of eternity. The desert was not merely a place, it was a mirror, reflecting the fierce, untamed beauty of a soul finally set ablaze. Her journey had become a sacred dance, each movement an affirmation of self, a declaration of a spirit reborn, charting its luminous course across the infinite desert of awakening, towards a future she was destined to claim. Her claim on this unfolding future was absolute, yet the silence surrounding her, immense and profound, carried a different resonance now. It was not the oppressive hush of her gilded prison, but an expansive, echoing quiet, a solitude so vast it felt almost sacred, mirroring the singular journey she had embarked upon. This boundless expanse, while liberating, also underscored the unique isolation of her chosen path. Each grain of sand beneath her feet, a world unto itself, seemed to whisper tales of solitude, of individual journeys across the infinite, and Yasmin, shedding the layers of her past, felt a new kind of singularity settle upon her, the profound, exhilarating loneliness of a soul charting its own untamed course. The stars, once indifferent witnesses, now seemed to lean in, their ancient light illuminating not just the desert, but the newly carved spaces within her heart. Spaces where old ties no longer held sway, replaced by the quiet strength of self-reliance. The cool night air, a tangible breath of unburdened existence, felt both invigorating and stark against her skin. It was freedom, yes, but also a raw exposure, a shedding of the protective layers of her former identity that left her exquisitely vulnerable to the immensity of her choice. The faint scent of desert bloom, mingled with mineral dust, filled her senses, a fragrance of wildness that held no hint of the cloying perfumes she had once worn. Her emerald ring, now a solitary gleam in the starlight, felt lighter, not because its physical weight had changed, but because the symbolic chains it represented had finally dissolved. It was a beautiful, shimmering relic on a hand, now reaching for an unscripted life, a constant, quiet reminder of the golden cage she had willingly, defiantly left behind, replaced by the boundless, yet equally isolating expanse of her own untamed spirit. The rhythmic crunch of sand beneath her bare feet was her only companion, a steady beat that echoed the newfound rhythm of her heart. It was a song of severance, each step a declaration of independence from a world that had sought to define her, to contain her within its opulent, yet suffocating embrace. She moved with a purpose born not of escape, but of urgent self-discovery, each shadow cast by the subtle moonlight, inviting her deeper into the labyrinth of her own potential. The resort's distant glimmer, a fading memory on the horizon, held no magnetic pull. Its golden light, once a beacon of her confinement, now seemed utterly alien, a false dawn in the boundless, honest darkness. She was charting a course by internal constellations, guided by a compass recalibrated by the very act of breaking free. This was the solitary heart of her liberation, a silent acknowledgement that true freedom often came with an intimate, unshared solitude. The vastness of the desert, while offering limitless horizons, also presented an echoing expanse for her own thoughts and desires, unmediated by others' expectations. There was an exquisite ache in this unburdened space, a poignant beauty in the quiet strength of her singularity. She was forging a new golden cage, perhaps, one crafted not of wealth and societal demand, but of the very uniqueness of her journey, a self-imposed sanctuary where her voice, once a whisper, could now resonate with an unhindered roar. The future stretched, luminous and terrifying, an open narrative she was writing alone, under the indifferent, magnificent gaze of eternity, each character etched with the fierce beauty of her own becoming. Her odyssey had not merely begun. It was now a profound and intensely personal testament to the courage of a soul unearthing its truest self, bound only by the infinite sky above and the boundless horizon of her own unyielding will.